Is this good or bad for Russia? Since the 2022 Russo-Ukrainian conflict, the tensions between Russia and Western countries have been ongoing, spanning from political and military issues to the economy, and even cultural and sports domains. Many major car brands from Europe, the United States, and even Japan and South Korea have announced sales bans in Russia, either voluntarily or due to pressure. They have implemented a series of restrictive measures, including but not limited to voluntarily withdrawing from the Russian market and ceasing to provide services in the industry. From a neutral perspective, the loss of support from Western car brands can certainly cause inconvenience for Russia in certain aspects. However, on the other hand, the departure of European, American, and Japanese car companies from the Russian market has created opportunities for domestic Russian and Chinese car brands to seize the market and gain a competitive advantage in certain specific areas. What is the market share of foreign car companies in Russia? However, on the other hand, the departure of European, American, and Japanese car companies from the Russian market has created opportunities for domestic Russian and Chinese car brands to seize the market and gain a competitive advantage in certain specific areas. This has also been observed in China, where Russian car brands are not commonly seen on the roads. In fact, foreign car manufacturers, especially those from the West, have a significant market share in both China and Russia, according to authoritative sources. Prior to the Russo-Ukrainian conflict, the top 3 brands in terms of market share in the Russian automotive market were from various European countries, South Korea, and Japan. These foreign car brands collectively held a market share of 75.6% in Russia before the conflict occurred. Since these brands have withdrawn one by one, their market share has rapidly dropped to 22.3%. These major car companies either directly withdrew from the market or announced that they would no longer export finished cars to Russia, which has caused difficulties for ordinary Russian people who have demand for cars. According to public opinion polls, the national car sales in Russia have dropped by 58.8% in 2022 alone, and the sales volume of finished cars, including new car production, has even fallen to the lowest level in the past 30 years, given the significant impact on the Russian automotive market. There are now rare opportunities for domestic Russian and Chinese car brands. The question is whether Chinese car companies can capture the hearts of local consumers with competitive prices and quality. What is the market share of Chinese car companies in Russia? According to the data we have searched, Chinese car brands in Russia achieved sales of over 100,000 vehicles in the previous year, with a staggering year-on-year increase of 67%. From this data, it is evident that Chinese brands have been performing exceptionally well in the Russian automotive market, considering the overall decline of 58.8% in national car sales in Russia, with total sales of less than 1 million vehicles. The fact that Chinese car brands hold a 37% market share is truly impressive. This remarkable achievement deserves recognition and admiration. Indeed, it is important to recognize that as Chinese brands gain increasing influence in the Russian automotive market, the prices of Chinese vehicles have been rising significantly. In 2022 alone, data shows that Chinese brand prices in Russia increased by 50% to 70%. This indicates a growing dependency on Chinese cars in the Russian market. For a long time, Chinese car brands in Russia were mainly focused on low-end models. However, with the increasingly close relationship between China and Russia in recent years, as well as the impact and withdrawal of other foreign brands, Chinese car companies have also begun to deploy high-end models in the Russian market. It is expected that they will launch a full-scale attack on the Russian automotive sales market. The most important step in this layout is the establishment of local production facilities in Russia, which helps to compress the production and sales costs of cars. This is in contrast to the trend of European, American, Japanese, and Korean brands withdrawing and closing production lines in Russia. It is clear that Chinese car companies are poised to further expand their market share in Russia. Currently, popular Chinese car brands in the Russian market include Geely, Changan, Great Wall, Chery, and Haval. According to senior experts in the Chinese automotive industry, the future landing of BYD new energy vehicles in Russia will also have a significant impact on the market structure of foreign car brands in Russia. Rome wasn't built in a day. The achievements of Chinese car brands in the Russian market today are not the result of overnight success. How did the Chinese automotive industry achieve its current success? Although the Chinese automotive industry has now produced impressive results, it wasn't always the case. At the beginning of the country's establishment, we couldn't even produce a simple wheel. Fans of black and white old movies should know that even our official vehicles were manufactured and imported from the Soviet Union at that time. It wasn't until 1956 that China truly had its first domestically produced car, the Liberation CA-10. However, even this domestically produced car was based on the Soviet GAZ-150 truck design. The weakness of China's industrial strength at that time was evident. If we calculate the start of China's automobile production from the invention of the automobile by the Germans in 1885, we were 70 years behind them. Even if we calculate from the start of the first automobile production line in the United States in 1913, our gap was still more than 40 years. China's automobile manufacturing industry, which was lagging behind by at least half a century, had no choice but to catch up and strive to surpass its competitors. During the reform and opening up period, a large number of Soviet cars were imported into China, such as Moskvich, JZ, Lada, and Volga, which were commonly seen on the streets in northern China. However, even during the Soviet era, the Russian automotive industry could only be described as large but not strong. There were many shortcomings in design and technology, and the manufacturing process was rough and unreliable, with poor quality control. These were not well known to southern Chinese friends, but they were widely recognized in the North. At that time, there were many jokes circulating among the Chinese people about Soviet cars, such as everything is loud except the horn and either fixing the car or waiting by the roadside for repairs. Brands like Moskvich, Volga, Lada, and the Polish-made Polonez were often mocked as the Big Four junk cars from Eastern Europe. Despite their notorious reputation for poor quality, Soviet cars still thrived and sold well in China at that time. This gives us an idea of the state of China's own automobile manufacturing industry during that period. The reform and opening up policy propelled China's economy to new heights. And with more money in the pockets of Chinese people, more foreign car companies saw the huge potential of the Chinese automobile market and began to enter China. Meanwhile, China's own domestic automobile industry was still in its infancy. We allow foreign car companies to continue their impact on the Chinese market. It is only a matter of time before we become their assembly workshop and lose our independent capabilities. To avoid this situation and leave a spark for a mature automobile industry in the future, China, at that time, wisely chose the famous tactic of market for technology. This meant allowing foreign car brands to enter the Chinese market, but on the condition that they establish joint ventures with domestic car brands, and foreign ownership should not exceed 50%. From then on, joint venture cars began to dominate the Chinese automobile market. While there were continuous bankruptcies and closures of state-owned car companies during that period, the high-priced joint venture brands remained strong and profitable. Take the Santana as an example. Although it may not be considered aesthetically pleasing, its selling price at that time reached 180,000 yuan per vehicle. In an era where the average monthly salary was only a few hundred yuan, it was considered a luxury car with an exorbitant price tag. Despite this, owning a Santana was still the dream for many people at that time, and they pursued it relentlessly. However, the market's survival of the fittest principle also brought a benefit to the development of China's automobile industry. Chinese car manufacturers that were able to survive the fierce market competition had acquired some killer techniques. They continuously improved their craftsmanship, technology, and cost-effectiveness, embarking on a journey of counterattack at the turn of the century. The first stop was to start exporting cars to Russia. The precious first time occurred in 2003 when ZTE Automotive, located in Hebei, exported 500 pickup trucks to Russia. With this start, Chinese cars quickly entered the Russian automobile market with excellent performance and moderate prices, and sales increased year by year, from 38,000 units in 2006 to occupying 7.5% of the entire Russian market share in 2021. Chinese cars now rank fourth among imported car brands in Russia. With this achievement, the Made in China in the automotive industry has completed a counterattack, from importing from the Soviet Union to independent research, development, production, and finally exporting cars to the Russian market. It took us a full 60 years, a century, to realize a great revival of the automotive industry.